Hey, what's up? This is Ill Factor from beatacademy.com. I'm going to share some music production tips and techniques while recreating the beat you can hear in Calvin Harris's Over Now featuring The Weeknd. So let me show you the final results, and I'll walk you step by step on how to recreate it. Now, listening to the sonic landscape of this song, the drums have a vintage drum machine feel. So I'm going to head and look for some 808 kits, 707s, and things like that, vintage drum machines. So as I browse some folders that have those type of sounds on my hard drive, I'll go ahead and find some and drag them over to a Ableton Live drum rack. Now with those samples in place, let's go ahead and listen to the pattern. Now, there's a couple nuances here that we're going to do with our drums that really help go a long way. So, for instance, focusing on this open hi-hat and this close hi-hat. What I want to do is make sure that they don't overlap each other. And as a matter of fact, when the open hi-hat plays, I want the close hi-hat to close it or to stop it. So in order to do that, I'm going to head over here to our drum rack, just open this up, and head over to our open hi-hat sample, and go down to this drop-down menu, and we're going to choose a choke number. This is called choking. This is so that any sample with the same choke number will cancel each other out once they overlap. So if I go ahead and play our open hi-hat and immediately play our close hi-hat that has the same choke number, it will cancel that one. So it gives more of that realistic feel, the open hi-hat, and then it closes the moment we draw in a close hi-hat. Now, I also want to add some movement, some modulation to that open hi-hat. And this is going to cause some nice movement there as it loops around, so that it's not really feeling like the same sample all the time. There's some sonic movement there. So it's a really cool trick to add a little bit of life to your drums when you can add things that modulate it. And that way, as it's looping and it goes around, it's not always the same, right? There's some texture that's being added to that. And the same thing goes for our clap. So here we have an 808 clap. And let's go ahead and put a delay on here. And now we're going to set it to about, right here, we're going to set it to 3, which is 3/8 notes. And I'm going to set the dry and wet to about 30%. And then let's put a reverb on there to actually give some depth to that clap so it fades a little bit more in the back. And now let's go ahead and take a listen. All right, so let's beef up these drums, and I'm going to be using Ableton Live's Drum Bus plugin. Love using this. And let's go ahead and give it a listen. This is without it. So a couple things, I'm adding some drive, some saturation here, and then some crunch for the mid frequencies. And I'm using the damp knob here. It's really just a high cut, so we're just eliminating some of the high frequencies. But this also gives it a nice warm vintage feel. And so the more highs we get rid of, the warmer this sound will get. The further back it goes in the mix as well. So I don't want it too bright, but I like where it was right around here. So removing about 10K or something like that. And then giving some sub-harmonic frequencies here, a nice little boost on the low end using this boom knob here. And then just opening the decay a little bit because I still want that kick to be nice and punchy and short. So I don't want a long boom in there. And we'll let the bass kind of cover that the more legato end of the bottom end. So yeah, sounds great. Let's go ahead and move over to the bass. Now for the bass, I'm going to be using IK Multimedia's, you guessed it, Moto Bass. and going with the 60s P bass preset here. Not a lot has changed, kind of left it the way it comes, a little bit of muting, and that's it, really didn't change anything else. So let's take a listen. Now, what's really going to help create the overall groove and help the bass and drums fit well together is that the bass isn't as stiff, meaning that each note does not line perfectly to the grid. So I played this by hand, and as you can see, some notes are ahead of the grid here, some fall behind, some are on, this one's ahead here. And so that's what's going to give a lot of more of that humanistic feel. Now, if you're just drawing in your notes, such as just double clicking, it's going to line up perfectly to the grid. So just by holding the command key, you can nudge this a little bit off grid. And there you go. You add a little bit of that looseness, that humanized feel to not just bass, but any performed piece. It really just helps add that looseness and the human element to that. When everything's too stiff and rigid, it just becomes robotic and it loses a lot of life. So I'm going to take this off here, and that's really going to help create the overall groove between the kick drum and the bass. Now let's use this EQ8 to take off some of the high end here. And after EQing it, I'm going to go ahead and compress it a little bit because I want to just control the overall dynamics. Now, the keys that we hear in the song are these classic electro piano sounds that you could hear all over the 80s. And so if you've got a plugin that features any electric piano patch, that's pretty much going to get as close as possible to the sound. So in Ableton Live, I wanted to see if I could find a stock sound, and Ableton Live, under the electric instrument category, we have an electric piano. It's called Electro Piano Days. So we're going to be using this one. So let's take a look at the chords. Now, a common effect that you can sometimes hear on electric piano patches, such as the one referencing in the song, is a phaser. So let's go ahead and add a phaser plugin. So I'm going to go to Audio Effects and Phaser. Click and drag that. And let's go ahead and just mess around with it till we find a cool spot. There you go. So that phase is going to add some nice texture to it, some nice movement going on to that. And then let's go ahead and add an EQ right after that. So let me just unsolo this. All right, next let's go ahead and add a couple electric guitars. So here I have a couple electric guitar parts recorded, and I've grouped them up. So we have just like an open strum chord. So I went ahead and just kind of layered that section here. Not the greatest, but there we go. And what I'm going to do is group up both of these guitar parts, add a little bit of compression here to kind of Make sure that they're both dynamically balanced. And I'm going to use the Ableton Live amp simulator. And we're also going to add a cabinet. And now I'm going to use this digital distortion here, and that's going to give a nice little grit to the top end. So that's cool there. And then let's add an EQ. And then chorus will do nicely to kind of widen up the sound. So let's see what it sounds like with everybody else. So now I'm also sending some of this signal over to my return tracks here. So I've got a couple things going on these return tracks. We have a 16th echo plugin here, or just a 16th note delay on return track A. We have a little room reverb here using Ableton Live stock reverb on B. And then I have a Max for Live LFO tool mapped to a chorus here. As you can see, that's what's causing that chorus to go up and down. And then EQ. So let me walk you through what's happening with each of these. So we're going to add some dimension and space so that all these instruments kind of feel like they're kind of living together in the same space. So let's send a little bit of reverb to the drums. And what I'm going to do is send a little bit of the drums also to this C return track with some chorus that is being mapped out with the LFO. And what's happening here is that the LFO plugin, this is from Max for Live, and you can simply just click this list here, hit the map button, and choose any plugin that you want to map to this LFO. And depending on the rate of the LFO, that will determine the of how fast those parameters change. So I've got it here about every 1 bar, and what it's doing is just changing the amount and the rate of the chorus. And I think I just accidentally mapped it to the track volume. So I'm going to just erase that and go right here. Leave that there. And then I have an EQ to make sure there's no low end. Kind of clogging up the stereo or side signal. And I like doing this a little bit to give some more extra width to the drums. I'll do the same thing with the piano. We'll send some reverb on there. And let's send these new guitars to the reverb and add a little bit of delay. Now I've also went ahead and recorded another electric guitar part, but this one's going to be a little bit more of the palm muting. So what I've done here is created a guitar track playing. And we're also just using a Ableton Live pedal plugin to give a little bit of overdrive, the amp simulator set to the blues model, the cabinet, and that's it. And what we're going to do is duplicate that same patch. Now these are 2 different takes. So I recorded 1 take and I doubled it. So try to my best as possible to play exactly the same. And what I've done is hard pan 1 take to the left, and I'm going to hard pan the other take to the right. It's important that you actually try to double the take and not just copy the same exact one and duplicate that. It's not going to work. So once I've gotten that, and we're just adding a little bit of EQ on the group channel, I'm going to take away some of that low end. A little bit of compression to kind of just keep them nice and sandwiched. And that chorus to widen it up. Now this adds some really nice texture to the whole group. So let's listen to it together. those. And the fact that it's panned left and right really just gives this nice stereo depth to the track so far. All right, now let's go ahead and add those strings that seem to be creeping in and then fade away nicely throughout the chorus section. So for this, let's use Ableton Live's wavetable to create that. And what I'm going to do is bring this right next to the electro piano. And I want to start with taking the same exact chords that we have in the electric piano, just holding the Option key and dragging that down. So let's go ahead and solo the wavetable. And we'll start by choosing a sawtooth. And the reason why I'm starting with the sawtooth is because we have a nice bright sound that we're going to filter out and warm up by using the frequency cutoff. So what I'll do is also set oscillator 2 on, set that to sawtooth, and we're going to detune our second oscillator. And we're going to lower our cutoff frequency and give a little bit of a peak or resonance. But you see how it just immediately starts? We want it to swell a little bit. So going to your amp envelope, let's go ahead and raise the attack. Well, let's get a little drastic here. So we'll do maybe even like something like this. See what that sounds like. That's cool. And then what we can do is kind of just open up the sustain and draw out the release a little bit. All right, right here. And let's go ahead and bring the unison on to classic. And then what we can do is color this up with a little bit of chorus right after that and give some dimension space with a reverb right after the chorus. Then we'll put in our next chord right here. And we'll just copy that over. And now to wrap it all up, let's add a ride cymbal to kind of introduce every turnaround. All right, let's see what it sounds like all together. Well, thank you so much for watching this video. I hope it was helpful and you picked up a couple techniques here and there that might help you on your next project. And as my gift to you for watching this video, I'd like to send you this Ableton Live session so that you can rewatch, follow along, and also a sample pack that I've put together with sounds, construction kits, one-shots, loops. These are all royalty-free. What that means is that you can use these sounds in your projects and share that music with the rest of the world. And it's yours absolutely free. Just go ahead, click the link below in the description box to download both the session and this sample pack. And if you haven't already, I definitely encourage you to subscribe and like this video so you can stay up to date with upcoming videos that I'll be releasing. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.